Hey guys, Zach here. I wanted to actually do a different kind of video today. Um, I think in the creator space, not that I would label myself a creator, but I think in the YouTube space, there is a tendency for people to project an image. Um, I get to show you guys these cool places that I've gone and the things that I like to do and the people that I meet and how much fun and how interesting it really is. And I've been very blessed about that. But I think part of being a genuine person is using your experiences to maybe help people. And so today I want to talk about a issue that I personally struggle with, and that is mental health. Specifically, I have an anxiety disorder. Um, Growing up in college, by the way, I do have my iPad here. I'm going to probably be referencing it because I did take some notes. Um, but I think growing up, and even going through like college and early adolescence and adulthood, nobody really would have known that I suffer from anxiety. I know I didn't know, so I don't think anybody else knew. I usually was described as outgoing. Some people would say charismatic. But I was always talking to people, always making new friends. I struggled with some self-confidence, right? Especially with women and um, whatnot. But I think in general, people would be like, wow, Zach's a really sociable guy. Um, so like I said, I was in a fraternity. I had a bunch of friends. I was really lucky. And at the bar, I was Mr. Party, man. Now the alcohol helped with that. But one of the things I always kind of struggled with was this feeling of being on edge, or feeling like maybe I was disappointing people, or if I thought somebody was going to get mad at me, I'd have like complete mental breakdowns, or if there was, any kind of stressors in my life, I'd hyper focus on those things. Um, so before I get into what I experienced that led me on my journey of mental health, I want to point out a couple things. Number one, if you think you're having any kind of medical issue, you should cover all your bases. You should see a doctor. For me, I had some physical symptoms with my anxiety, which we'll get into in a minute. But yeah, you need to talk to a doctor. Make sure you cover all your bases, right? Never hurts to be too thorough. Number two, I do not have all the answers. My anxiety might be completely different from somebody watching this. My panic attacks might feel completely different, or have different symptoms, though usually there's some overlap. And I don't want people to think that just because what I'm saying, I'm just a guy on YouTube, right? You need to talk to medical professionals, you need to talk to psychiatrists or therapists or whatever you have available to you. Um, and last but not least, just know that I know there's a stigma around mental health, right? One of my favorite basketball players, Kevin Love, had similar issues. Had a panic attack during a game, and people thought he was faking and yada yada, and it was, not great for him. And he's been a really big advocate. I know that he's inspired me, and without guys like that, or even support system that I'm lucky I have, I don't know that I would have sought out help, and because I think I just kind of acclimated to, oh, this is what life normally feels like. So I guess I've always had anxiety. However, I became acutely aware of it in early 2022. I had COVID that year, which in itself was stressful, right? I had a trip planned. I was going to go to Bogota, actually. I ended up going after I was cleared to go from COVID. And during that time, I met a friend there, and we were hanging out a lot, and just something felt off. And at first I was like physically it felt off. I would have this weird feeling in my stomach, this weird feeling in my chest. And it wasn't pain or it wasn't anything like that, but it was noticeable. And I'd hyper focus on it. I'd do what I call body checks. I'd take my pulse. I'd look at my Apple Watch, which when my heart rate was higher would just cause more. more ups, and it was just not a great trip. I ended up cutting it short. And as you guys know, I love Colombia. It would take a lot to get me out of there. I didn't know this at the time, but I was having panic attacks. So, but the worst of it, and it all kind of came to a head a few months later. I'd been back in the US for 2 months. I'd been acutely aware of the way I was feeling, because I was worried that, what if something is wrong with me? What if I have long COVID or something, right? And one day I was going to go to a concert, which I love doing. I love going to concerts. And I walked downstairs and I got a high heart rate notification on my phone, or on my Apple Watch. And I checked it and it was 122, but I had just gotten out of bed from like a nap. So I was like, okay, my body's just trying to catch up because I had to wake up and rush. And I got in my car and I drove, and all of a sudden I'm like, something's wrong. No pain, no nothing. If you asked me, I'd have just been like, I feel hot. I was living in the Keys at the time, so yeah, obviously, but I felt hot and I felt tingles go through my body and my heart rate was racing. I was driving a car and I was on 7 Mile Bridge and my heart rate was at 177 beats a minute, just driving a car. I don't know if you know this, your heart rate's supposed to be about around 60 to 100. Maybe if you're a little out of shape like me, you go up to like 105 doing an activity like driving a car. And so I whipped a Yui on the 7 Mile Bridge, which is dangerous as shit, and I don't recommend doing unless it's an emergency. And I went to Fisherman's Hospital in Marathon, Florida. They hooked me up. They did an EKG. They're like, yeah, your heart rate's really high, but it's beating in rhythm. The EKG looks normal. And after about an hour-ish, it passed as I became more and more calm, because in my mind I was safe, I think, in a hospital. So I don't know, a couple weeks go by. They were going to put me on beta blockers, which was meant to keep my heart rate low. And I think 2 weeks went by. And I don't even remember what I was doing, but I had another one. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to die. And no pain, no nothing. Just high heart rate, chills, and my hands were shaking. And that tingly feeling. So I went over to Fisherman's again. And quite frankly, I freaked out, had like a little bit of a meltdown. They referred me to a cardiologist because they're like, we think it might be anxiety, which I immediately dismissed, right? I was like, I've never had this problem before. No, it's not me. But yeah, it was not great. So I went to a cardiologist. I had a Holter monitor, which was annoying as hell. And then I would get frustrated because the results showed that my heart was normal. I had like a low T wave, whatever the first little thing is on the, squiggly lines, that, it's a little bit lower than the average, but like nothing to be causing an irregular heart rate, or what they call tachycardia. So I naturally was really stressed, and I'm not going to lie to you guys. I couldn't hold my emotions for a while. Unfortunately, I wasn't suicidal, but I was convinced I was going to die. And it was really scary. Called a lot of friends, family, and they kind of walked me through some stuff. And people kept suggesting, hey, you might just be having panic attacks. And not that just having panic attacks, like it's not a big deal. I want to be very clear. I went through it. It's a huge deal. But my friends said, maybe you should talk to somebody. And one day, it was a weekend, and this had been going on for 2 months or so. I was afraid to leave the house, and I couldn't leave the house. And I could go on walks on my little road in the Keys, which I was grateful for. They're probably the only thing that kept me sane, but I would lay in my bed thinking that if I got up, I was going to die. I remember one time I got in the shower even, and I was just taking a shower, and all of a sudden I'm like, I'm going to die if I don't get out of the shower right now. So, you wash all the stuff out real quick and you go and crawl in bed and just wait for your heart to let go. It was a scary time, to the point that I called a crisis hotline. They asked if I felt suicidal. I said, no, I very much want to live, but I think I'm going to die. And they referred me to some resources to kind of help me cope. It got so bad to the one point that I thought we were going to have to maybe go to an inpatient facility for my mental health. And I'm telling you guys this because I want a baseline of where I'm at and how I got to where I am today. So first and foremost, I had a consultation. I went through a company called Brightside. And I'm not giving any recommendations of where to go, right? Whatever resources you think are best for you or your doctor thinks are best for you, you should go. So none of this is an endorsement. It's just my story. But they gave me escitalopram, better known as Lexapro. Again, not an endorsement. Talk to your doctor. Don't ask and say some random YouTuber gave me this advice, right? They prescribed me that, as well as they said, you need to have therapy. Now, Brightside runs cognitive behavior therapy, where they kind of teach you to deal with the symptoms, and I didn't find it particularly impactful. So I actually sought out a second therapist. I don't know if Marianne will ever find this video. Dr. Marianne, you were fantastic. Thank you so much for all the help that you gave me. But Marianne kind of walked me through, helped me unpack some of the things that might be causing me anxiety. After I'd gotten a clean bill of health, she's like, okay, we're going to pack this out and help you stop having panic attacks, or at least understanding that they're panic attacks. I went through therapy for a really long time. As you can imagine, I couldn't leave the house. So the idea of coming home where I had a support system here in Ohio when I was living in Florida was out of the question, because one of my biggest fears to this day, let's be clear, is I don't want to have a panic attack on a plane, because, ooh, buddy, that's a rough ride for you, and it's going to be a rough ride for your seatmate. But eventually I got to the point where, when you start SSRIs or any kind of mental health medication, you have to ramp it up, and it takes a while, and you get worse before you get better. At least I did, right? And so finally I got to the point where I could do that, and I could get on a flight, and I came home, and I was in Ohio for 2.5 months. Just trying to work on my mental health and feeling better. And really, I think one of the things that helped me was being so close to a hospital, because, to be honest, where I was staying at my mom's, and it's right across the street from a hospital, right? So we're going to cut this here for a second. So while in Ohio, I kept working through therapy, adjusting to my medication with the help and patience of my mother, who was awesome through it. My whole family was, really. And I also started reading self-help books, which, again, those helped me because it helped me identify what was going on. The one that I actually want to recommend, and I've bought this for multiple people going through similar issues, is Unfuck Your Brain. It's by Faith G. Harper. And it's a comical way of looking at what's going on with you in a very serious time, which I desperately needed. Anyway, a bunch of stuff happened between then, going through therapy, doing whatever, and I felt like me again. And I could do things. I could drive a car without having to be on the phone and worrying that I was going to have a panic attack. I could jump on a plane again. Flying back to Key West was the best feeling in the world, because I was like, I'm not even worried about a panic attack. I mean, I had a little bit, but it wasn't that bad. I didn't have a panic attack. I just felt a little anxious, right? It wasn't that bad. So that brings me to Medellin. Uh, about maybe 2, 3 months after I got back, this would have been August of last year, I started to get the travel itch again. And I felt like I needed to go somewhere and that was new, but yet somewhat familiar, right? And I'd already been to Colombia multiple times, as you guys had known. And I said, well, I'm not going back to Bogota because I just think that, I've been there so many times. At that point, I think it was been my fourth time had I gone. And I wanted something new, but with like, okay, I kind of know what I'm getting myself into thing. Um, so I went to Medellin for the first time and I didn't tell anybody. I told people who needed to know, right? Like I told my folks and whatever. And I flew to Medellin and I stayed for 6 weeks. And I just remember being on that plane and not freaking out about it and going, okay, I'm back to being me again. The guy who travels all the time, the guy who wants to socialize and do fun things. And like, I don't care that I don't know anybody because I'm out there and doing things. And then that led to me wanting to create this channel in order to show off Colombia and the other places that I'm going. That said, I still suffer from anxiety. Anytime that I have to book a flight or accommodations, I'm anxious and overly analyzing anything, and my brain just latches onto it until I'm mentally exhausted. It's a trait. I have coping techniques, including just saying, fuck it. And as well as still, I'm still going to therapy and talking to friends who support me with it. Shout out my Stag brothers. You guys did amazing things, making sure I was okay. And still making sure I'm okay, right? Flights, booking a flight is fucking exhausting for me. Like, oh, well, I should get the most direct flight. Yeah, but if I go this way, I can do whatever. And my brain just doesn't let me do anything easily. Hell, even making this YouTube channel can sometimes cause anxiety. Well, I haven't gotten anything out. It's been 2 weeks and I can't find a single subject to film about in Ohio. Or, oh, I said I was going to Kenya, but now I can't afford it, so I'm going to have to just go directly to Europe. And all these things, the point is your anxiety never really goes away. But if you're someone who has anxiety or suffers from panic attacks, the whole point of this is that I had to get back to being me, and it's totally possible. Now, you might not have any desire to go out and live in a foreign country. You might want to, your goal might have been what mine was, a year and a half ago. I just want to be able to drive my car to the grocery store without having my cell phone speed dialing my mom in order to talk because I feel like I'm going to die. Or maybe it's, I don't know, I want to go to the town over from me and just grab a bite to eat, but I can't do that because if I leave the house, I feel like I'm going to die. Like, you're not crazy. That's the big takeaway that I want to have from this, is that you're not crazy. Because I wasn't crazy. I just needed help. So, again, none of what I'm suggesting is any medical advice. You guys need to go and do your own stuff for that. But take the first step and try to seek out help. Because mental health is exactly what the second word says. It's just health. You're not alone. It can be very scary. And you do have a road to walk. But it gets better. And I'll leave you with this because my grandma Connie, who passed away 2 years ago, and I miss her a lot, but she used to say these things. She used to say this thing all the time. And I'm paraphrasing because I don't have the exact words, but life is a journey. And you're going to have highs and you're going to have lows. And during the lows, you're going to think, gosh, I wish I could just skip this part. But the fact of the matter is, had I not gone through what I went through, I wouldn't be where I am today. Learning coping mechanisms, learning to not have anxiety about, oh my God, is this the right or the wrong thing to do? And what my grandma would say is after you go through those lows, you get to back to the highs and you learn something from it and you continue on your journey. It's the smartest thing anyone's ever told me. So just remember, guys, life is a journey. And what's going on with you right now, if you're suffering from mental health problems, doesn't define you. I wish you luck. If you need anything, leave something in the comments and I'll reach out. You can ask me any questions that you want. I'm here to help. But it gets better. Hang tough and support each other and love each other. Thanks.